Okay, first thing I want to do is bring this down a little bit and click this plus sign, switch the view over to thumbnail, then close this back up, then click on my textures. Let's hit X to delete that cube there, tap Shift A and add a plane, hit S to scale it up pretty big. Then let's go ahead and drop some kind of texture on it. How about some boards here? And then let's tap Shift A and add a UV sphere, tap W to give it some smoothing, G to grab and pick it up a little bit. And let's drop something on it. How about a marble texture? Then tap A to select everything in the scene and Shift Q to give these textures materials here. Now let's tap Alt Z to send us into viewport texture shading here. The sphere looks kind of nasty. Let's go ahead and click on that and tap Tab to get into edit mode, tap A to make sure everything's selected, T to bring up our tools, and then make sure you're on the Shading UVs tab here and click Unwrap. And let's click Sphere Projection to go ahead and give us a quick, easy job to get that done. And then we can hit Tab to get out of edit mode. So let's go ahead and jump over to this sphere's texture setting here, and we want to make sure we're on the Material tab for the texture. And under Influence, let's check mark Normal so we have some cool bump mapping on this marble texture here. Let's go ahead and click on the plane here with the boards texture and go ahead and turn its geometry on. And let's just bring that down a little bit. There, sweet. Okay, so how do we get this ball to move? First of all, whenever we're working in physics simulations, we're going to be needing the animation to actually be playing to be able to see it. So let's click on the sphere, and we have our tools up here by tapping T, and then under the Physics tab we can click Add Active, and then if we come down here and press play, we'll see that the sphere falls straight through the floor. So we can hit pause and then hit this button, which sends us all the way back to the end of the timeline, and everything's back to how it was. So for this ball not to fall through the floor, Blender's got to know which objects should be considered in this simulation. So we select the floor and we click Add Passive. Things that you want to be able to move and be affected by gravity, you click Add Active, and things that you want to be stuck into space, you click Add Passive. So now we come down here and tap play, and the ball falls. After a second, it starts to roll. We can actually hit G to grab this plane, and we can actually move things around in real time. Or we could hit R to rotate it, and the sphere starts moving up and down. And basically you got your own game of Labyrinth here. So I'll tap Alt A to stop that animation, and then I'll tap Shift Alt A to reset it. And you notice that the ball jumped all of a sudden back to the middle of the area because the animation restarted, and that's because we have the animation only set for 500 frames. So let's increase that to a much longer time so we can have more fun with it. So let's put it to 2500 frames. And then we also need to come down here to our Scene tab, and under Rigid Body Cache we need to increase this to the same number as our timeline. So 2500, enter. Now when we start it, we'll have a lot more time to play with it. So I'm going to go ahead and tap A to select everything, and then I'm going to press Alt R, which resets the rotation and position of all the objects to their original origin. Then I'm going to pick up the sphere and hit G to grab and move it back up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my tilde key in my 3D view to maximize my screen real estate here. And when we do that, we don't have access to our animation controls anymore, but we can use our hotkeys. We can press Alt A to start the animation. So I can pick up and move anything in the scene. I can pick up this plane, which is passive, and I can rotate it and have it affect it like that. And I can also pick up this sphere and hit G to grab it and move it anywhere I want. And if I hit G and pick it up, I can also click, and then if I immediately tap D to duplicate, I'll make another sphere. So I'll click and hold and then tap D, and then it makes another sphere. So I can just create these as many as I want all over the place to do whatever I want. So right now all of our balls are floating right off our little table here, so we should probably do something about that. So I'm going to tap Alt-A to stop the animation, then Shift-Alt-A to reset it, A to select everything, Alt-R to move everything back to its origin. And you see when I did that, all of those spheres went back into the same position. Select A to select everything, then Shift select the plane twice to make sure it's not selected, and G to grab, and reselect one of these so I can just get one of them, and then border select all these and hit X to delete. So now I just have one again. Let's stop these balls from rolling all over the place. So I'm going to click on this plane, hit Tab to go into edit mode, make sure I'm in face selection. I'm going to hit E to extrude this up a little bit, and then I'm going to hit Shift E to do an inset just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to hit E again to extrude the inset I just made. So now I've got kind of a little container. So the texture is looking all stretched and messed up, which isn't really a big deal, but just so we can have more fun, I'm going to go ahead and tap A to select everything, then click Unwrap, and then Cube Projection, because these are very cube-like dimensions, and hit Tab to get out of edit mode. So now we have a better looking little container here. So let's tap Alt-A again, press G to move this around, and we can hit R to rotate it, and this time it does not fall out of its container because it's got these walls, which is cool. So now I'm going to click this sphere and hit G to grab, and then click my mouse button down, and then immediately tap D to make more instances of it, and just make quite a few of these like this, and let go. And now I've got all kinds of stuff going on in here. I can rotate this little box we've made and watch these go down, and watch these go out like this. I can also duplicate, hit D to duplicate the crate itself right here, then grab this one. I can actually scale in real time, and these spheres will react to the scaling of this box here. And then I can hit G to grab it. Oh, it went flying out. That's no good. So I'm going to tap Alt-A to stop the animation, then Shift-Alt-A to restart it. I'm going to hit G to grab this and put it under the spheres here. Then I'm going to tap Alt-A to play the animation. Then I'm going to press R to rotate this and just drop these out of this box right into this one down here. Then I'm going to tap Alt-A again to stop the animation. Okay, so I'm going to select this upper box, hit X to delete it, and then tap A to select everything, and then Alt-R to reset everything. And then I'm going to do a border select over these spheres and hit G to grab and bring them over here. Right now, the type of collision shape of mesh works okay when I've just got a handful of objects, but what if I were to scale this sphere down and then hit D and duplicate it a bunch of times? And then hit B to border select this and duplicate these up and duplicate this. And select these again and duplicate them also. Now I've got quite a lot of objects for my computer to try to handle for a live physics simulation. So if I were to tap Alt-A right now, it's just going extremely slow, not moving anywhere hardly. So if I tap Alt-A to stop that animation, then Shift-Alt-A to reset it, one way we can overcome this is we can select all these spheres, and we can change all the shapes of objects all at once that we have selected. I could change this collision type from mesh, which is the most resource heavy, to something more relative to the actual shape, such as a sphere. And when I change it to the sphere, it's going to behave with specific rules related to the sphere so that it's not eating up unnecessary resources. So if I tap Alt-A now, it's still a little clunky, but much quicker than it was going before. So if I were to tap Shift-Alt-A to reset this and Alt-A to stop it, and select, say, half of these, and hit X to delete them, and then tap Alt-A again, Now it's moving much more fluidly. So changing the type of collision shape allows us a lot more freedom in working things in a live view. You see as I'm bouncing up this box here like this. I'm going to tap Alt-A to stop, Shift-Alt-A to reset it. So let's tap A to select everything, and then Alt-R to reset their position. And then I'm going to Shift-select this box so that only the spheres are selected. Hit G to grab, pull them up, and then double-click off to deselect off there, and then click just one of them and hit G to grab and move it over. I'm going to B to select all these other spheres that all merged into the same point when we reset their rotation and location by hitting Alt-R, and then tap X to delete them all. So I'm going to tap Shift-C to bring my 3D cursor to the center. Then I'm going to press Shift-A and add a cube and hit G to grab it. I'm going to hit S to scale it out long ways using my middle mouse to constrain. Scale it down a little bit again, and then S to scale and middle mouse constrain. And then maybe S and Z constrain like that by holding my middle mouse button. So I've got kind of a paddle here. So what I want to do is have this paddle spinning to where it will knock into this ball or other balls. I'm going to hit tilde key to get all my tools and stuff back. Then I'm going to click Add Active, but I have to do something special here because I plan on animating this paddle. So I need to go over into the Physics tab, and under this rigid body here, I want to click Animated. So now what I can do is just, with this little paddle selected, tap F, and that inserts a keyframe. And then I can just click R and then to rotate, and Z to constrain it, and rotate it around, and tap F again. And so now we see that my little paddle is animating. So what I can do is shift select these keyframes and duplicate them, and then border select all these and duplicate them, and then maybe just do that all one more time. And now when I tap Alt-A to play my animation, I've got this flipper that's going back and forth. So I'll tap Alt-A to stop that, Alt-Shift-A to reset it, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit my tilde key to maximize my screen real estate. And let's duplicate this sphere a bunch of times so they'll all be getting knocked around a bunch by this paddle. Let's tap Alt-A to play that, and we see they're getting slung all over the place. But that might be a little cooler if we made those paddles longer. So I'll tap Alt-A to stop that, Alt-Shift-A to reset, and I'm going to hit S to scale this all the way out like this. Now let's tap Alt-A again. Oh, and it goes back down because the animation includes scale. So what I can do is tap Alt-A to stop that, Shift Alt-A to reset, hit tilde key to get out of my tools there, and I can come down here to where my dope sheet is, which is actually on the action editor, and tap my tilde key to maximize it. Then I'm going to click this plus sign, and I'm going to click this plus sign over here, and I'm going to select the dope sheet summary, and then under low quote scale select that down. And what I want to do is delete all the keyframes related to scale here. So I'll select all 3 rows of these X, Y, and Z scales down here and hit X to delete them. Then I'll go ahead and close that back up, hit tilde key to get out of that. Actually, click that plus sign and make sure we're back on dope sheet summary. So that looks nice. And now I can scale this paddle out and it won't change. So if I tap Alt-A, they're getting zonked to Albuquerque and back all over the place, which is pretty sweet. So I can actually grab this and then put it back there, and then the extent of that animation there ran out, but we could copy those keyframes. So if I click this back button and I press play, we've got this kind of interesting animation going on here where these balls get whacked. Only problem is, if we went to actually click our animation render button and render this animation out, we wouldn't actually see anything because we need to do what's called baking the frames. So it's real easy to do. All we do is come down here and press bake. But we have our animation going for 2,500 frames, and that would take about 1,000 years to bake that out entirely. So what we want to do is come to about right here, wherever we plan on stopping the animation, and then we can see over right here that it's 400 frames, as we can see the frames moving there. We would want to stop it out at about 400 frames, and then also in the Scene tab under Rigid Body Cache, we'd want to switch this over to 400 frames as well. We could click that back at the end and then click bake. That baked really quickly because it was a really simple simulation. And then whenever we went to render this animation, we could actually be able to render what we're watching in this live view here. So don't forget that if you're making any changes or want to switch stuff back, you then need to click free bake so that if you're making any changes to the simulation and you want to animate it later.